turns first thing again. We did a clearing turn just now, and quick cruise checklist. I had the checklist. But we're just checking the mixture. Fuel pump is still on. Timer has not gone off yet for the switch tank, so we'll stay on the same tank. I have my altitude, which is roughly 3,500. I have a landmark ahead of me. It's Mount Diablo. And I want to roll back out on Mount Diablo. We're going to try to maintain plus or minus 100 feet. Roll out within 10 degrees of our heading, which our heading is about 210-ish. About 210 on Mount Diablo. So plus or minus 10 on the heading. Plus or minus 100 feet on the altitude. Bank angle is 45 degrees, and I think it's plus or minus 5 degrees with the bank angle. And this is all in the Private Pilot ACS. All right, at or below maneuvering speed. I'd like to be a little faster.
And departure.
So what steep turns are great for?
Currently have 1700 up to
For me personally, I think they demonstrate that the student understands the plane's behaviors aerodynamically. So you're thinking overbanking tendency, load factor, which higher load factor increases stall speed, left turning tendencies. You're demonstrating your understanding of all of that. You're also demonstrating that you understand that. You're going to have to add a lot of back pressure once you're in 45 degrees of bank because you're losing some vertical lift in exchange for horizontal component of lift. So your lift vector splits into two different vectors. You have vertical and horizontal. So you're going to need a lot of back pressure once you get into that bank. Normally what I do is I get into 30, I pause for like a second, I add power, I pull, and then get into 45. So we'll do that. So we're clear both to the right and to the left. We did our clearing turns.
Yep, I don't see anybody.
Staring at Mount Diablo. And we'll stabilize here with the altitude. So really nail your sight picture. And then we'll do one to the left first. So to the left. There's 30, pause, pull, add some power into 45. I'm looking outside primarily.
We'll see you later.
And I'm quickly scanning inside for my instruments, but I'm primarily outside. Keep my head on a swivel. Once I get to my rollout point, I'm going to have to take out that extra power I put in. Otherwise, once you level off, that extra power is really going to make you climb and make the plane balloon up.
Say that frequency again for 2085, please.
And I started my rollout about 20 degrees before I actually reached Mount Diablo. Because if you try to roll out on your landmark or your heading, you're going to overshoot it. So you have to start about 20 degrees early.
I'm good.
All right, to the right. To the right's a little bit harder because you're going to need more right rudder, and that tends to add a challenge to the steep turn, but we will do our best. So we are clear to the right. Same thing. About 30, pause, pull, power. There's that overbanking tendency, so I have to kind of counteract that with some opposite aileron. Looking outside.
NorCal, Sirius 221 Alpha Whiskey, VFR request.
No, 221 Papa Whiskey, NorCal approach.
221 Alpha Whiskey is an SR22 slant call. We're about 5
rolling out
miles
early.
South of Placerville.
I backed out that power.
100 for 9,500.
Dropped about
I'm going to
60-ish feet.
Go
So not my best, but technically within standards. So we'll use it.
Alpha Whiskey, what was your type aircraft?
SR22 slant call.
So get into 30, pause, pull, power, get into 45, rolling out about 20 degrees prior to your rollout point. I'm going to turn us around.
Cool.
And then remembering to take out that extra power that you put in when you were in the turn, because now you have all of your vertical lift back. You don't need that extra power anymore to maintain altitude. Common mistakes, not adding enough rudder for the right turn. Usually when students do it, since you're sitting in the left seat, students tend to descend too much on the left side and climb too much on the right side. And it's just because of where you're sitting. Where you're sitting on the left side, when you turn left, it looks like you're sitting below the nose, and the nose looks like it's too high. So subconsciously, you want to put the nose down. And then to the right, it's opposite. You're sitting on top of the nose, so the nose is kind of lower to you relative to where you're sitting. So you subconsciously want to bring it up, and then you end up climbing too much on the right side. And then for me, it's the opposite. So and you can see that on the right, when I did the right turn, I was descending a little bit too much.
Fish 1 Alpha Whiskey, ready to contact 10 miles
So same concept, just different size.
Placerville, altitude leaving.
Oh, another way to correct for altitude is sometimes if you find like you're descending, sometimes you might be too steep in a bank. So if you're too steep, like steeper than 45, the nose is going to want to drop even more. So you could shallow out the bank instead of adding more power, for example, if you're descending. Or if you're climbing and you check the altitude indicator, maybe you're not in a steep enough bank, maybe you're only like in 30 degrees and you need to be in 45. Once you get into 45 from 30, the nose will drop and the altitude will correct itself. So you demonstrate that you understand aerodynamics by correcting it that way, just adjusting your bank angle. You could also accidentally enter an accelerated stall. So if you try to do a steep turn, but you don't add enough power, but you're adding all that back pressure, you have an increased load factor and you're slowing down because you're pulling up. The stall light will go off and you could enter a stall and a spin. In the Cessna, the stall horn would go off.